Hey everybody, Lance Armstrong here, and I'm excited to announce. A lot of people have podcasts these days. I felt like jumping in the game. I come across a lot of interesting people in my life that I find interesting, at least, and so I figured I'd start this little podcast called The Forward Podcast, and we'll sit down for anywhere from 45 minutes to a couple hours and just wrap out with cool folks. So I hope you guys find it interesting. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, send us an email to theforwardpodcast@wedӯsport.com, and wedӯ is WEDU. Thanks, y'all, and hope you enjoy. Hey folks, this is Lance Armstrong, and welcome to the Forward Podcast. For our very first podcast, I asked a friend to come on, a gentleman by the name of Tim League, the founder and the CEO of Alamo Drafthouse, somebody that I think is arguably redefining people's experiences in going to a movie theater. So not only are you seeing the greatest movies, but you're having a great time, you're being treated great, having good food, having a cold beer. Tim came through Colorado recently, riding the Ride the Rockies. This is the second year that he and I have done it together. He's a fellow Austinite. He's an all-around good dude, and I hope you find our conversation interesting. Thanks for listening in. Hey everybody, welcome to the Forward with Lance Armstrong podcast. I'm here today with my friend Tim League, fellow Austinite, who's the founder and CEO of Alamo Drafthouse, based in Austin. And we started a new tradition, I guess, last year. So Tim, oddly enough, I thought he had done this. I thought he had done the Ride the Rockies maybe 20 times. And so I asked him today how many times he'd done it. He counted and said this is his second year. So yeah, we rode together last year and we rode together this year. So Tim, thanks for being here.
No problem. It's my pleasure. It was over beers with somebody at the Odell Brewery, probably too many beers, where somebody kind of poked me and said, "Come on, do it. You can do it."
I see.
And so it was really sort of a quasi dare the first time around, but I had a great time last year, and it's good to have something on the horizon that gets you in shape.
Yeah. Shout out to them. We started with them today. And we dropped them pretty good.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, as soon as we started climbing.
All these guys that live at altitude and hear us lowlanders, I mean, we rode away.
To be fair, I think they're more professional beer drinkers than they are professional cyclists.
Okay, well,
but
then they win.
Yeah.
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't. When I got up, we were meeting at 8, so I left the house at 7, and I got up at 6 to drink coffee and read the news. And I opened the internet, my computer, and was reading about this incident in Orlando. And at the time, so leaving the house at 7, the headline was 20 people killed. Mm-hmm. We started 8. We finished at 11. I get back to the house and it's then 50 people killed.
Right.
I mean, what can we make of that? I mean, it's so impossible to wrap your head around.
The only thing I know about is I got a New York Times news alert while I was on the bike, and so I looked at it, and all I saw was the headline. And so you're potentially talking to the most ignorant person on the planet right now about the details of the incident. But I mean, it's a shocker of a headline to just digest. But then I had a hill to climb, so I just kind of put my phone back in, and I haven't really even processed it.
So you didn't know before we started?
No. Mm-mm.
Well, what were you doing all morning?
I didn't wake up early.
What, stretching or meditating?
I had an Egg McMuffin, which I know is like the worst thing in the world to eat before you go on a ride.
I love McDonald's breakfast.
Yeah. I got up, took care of my morning ritual, which didn't include the internet.
Right.
So that moment in the middle of the ride.
Yeah, we don't need to get into the morning ritual.
Yeah. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I think we all understood.
There's some S's involved.
Wow. No, but it's just, so I came home, and of course every station was covering this constantly. And then the president spoke, and then when he came, spoke about this tragedy, then when he was finished, the newscaster said that this is the 15th time in his presidency that he's had to come out and address the nation about a mass murder with guns. I mean, I know you're super involved with, or not super involved, but super passionate about politics and specifically Bernie Sanders. And I mean, what's I mean, we're not getting anywhere here. Right. I mean, what's the solution? I mean, not that you have the.
Obviously, I think there has to be some stronger regulations. I think I don't know anything about this particular incident, so I would say that in at least some of them in the past, there have been issues with mental health, and we don't have a great national mental health policy.
Right.
I think it was largely dismantled during the Reagan administration, and it was never rebuilt. But I'm certainly in favor of pretty serious regulations on guns, in particular automatic weapons.
Right.
So it's a hard case to make when you're trying to protect the rights of full auto AK-47s or whatever the case may be.
Right.
We can still enjoy our hunting, and we can still be proud gun owners if we want to be. But I think the number and the power can be diminished for the general public.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm all for most of these amendments, but they were created obviously so long ago that, when you have the Second Amendment, they weren't talking about assault rifles and AKs and these things where people can.
Well, that's where it's tricky. And again, I'm no expert, but I certainly take the Second Amendment to be the right to bear arms in case your government becomes too powerful and you have to fight the government. So there is an arguable case for it. But I think just in the nature of what has happened in the acceleration in the last 10 years, I'm ready for a different tactic or a different interpretation of that amendment.
Yeah, I think we have to. I remember it was a long time ago, and I vaguely remember this, but there was a mass shooting in Australia at the McDonald's, and I think there were 20 plus killed. And I mean, it was literally the next, and not to say that we want to be Australians or whatever, but it was literally the next day whoever the prime minister or the parliament said, that's it, no more. And we just seemed to anyways, I mean, we could talk about this forever, but it was an awful tragedy. I mean, the guy, when I came home, the guy actually called 911, I guess in the middle of this, and pledged some sort of allegiance to ISIS, which, of course the media runs with, politicians will run with. Mm-hmm. But who knows? I mean, meanwhile, his father says he's not religious. His ex-wife, who also came out and said he beat her repeatedly, says he's not religious. But these people get turned on, seemingly overnight.
Right.
But, and then, then you get to, so I was just looking through Twitter and there were reports of the police that are actually in an active crime scene. So with these victims laying around and just all they hear are their cell phones ringing. So, I mean, think about that, walking through there and these loved ones and friends and family members just calling, texting. That's the only noise in that club.
Wow. You've started off with a really heavy podcast, Lance.
I know. Well, I get, I mean, yeah, I mean, when you, I mean, I guess we should have talked about it today on the ride because I watched it this morning. Mm-hmm. And then coming back to it, it was just like, and then on the heels, I mean, I'm sort of living with, this week for me has just been extra crazy because you had this tragedy last Tuesday in Kalamazoo with these 9 cyclists who were hit, 5 of whom lost their lives to a man who just drove over the back of them, like literally just over the top of them. So you see things like that and it just makes me wonder what the hell is going on. Makes you want to go to the movies.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, I mean, you mentioned my love affair with Bernie Sanders. It's been a really interesting election cycle. Just, I think on both sides, me on the kind of progressive side, but Donald Trump on the other side, just to see people who are so fed up with the system, whatever that system may be. Yep. But what's frightening is the amount of anger that's coming out in this election, and I think we're nowhere near done with it. It's seemingly dark days right now.
Yeah, but I agree. I think people are. Yeah, I think people are sick of the system, sick of career politicians. Mm-hmm.
I mean, clearly, I mean, if look, I mean, the fact that Trump has made the run that he's made, and all along the way, people have said, okay, this is the end of it. He's made too many, that last quote was it, or that last appearance, the guy just keeps rolling.
No, his primary power is that he's not afraid to tell it like it is, quote unquote, which makes him a little bit unable to be dethroned, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's not. You're right. That was you know what? This whole podcast thing is new to me, so I shouldn't. Let's hope on number 2 there's not some crazy news that's heavy on my mind. So, well, we can, and I didn't even realize this but until you told me today. But we'll just go all the way to the other end. Let's talk about this beekeeping that you're now into. I mean, that's uplifting.
Yeah, I'm new to beekeeping,
Yeah.
so I'm not an expert, but I've kind of dialed into it in a really serious way.
I think that's what people do with beekeeping.
Yeah, once you start, and I actually got it from my wife as a gift for Christmas. She supported this Kickstarter of a new type of hive, which is apparently drawing a lot of first timers into the bee husbandry hobby, and so. I got my box back then, but then you don't actually start until springtime when there's something for the bees to actually, make honey with.
Right.
So I've been at it now about 5 weeks. I went up to a professional honey farm up north of town and bought basically what equates to a box of bees, like 3,000 bees in a box with a queen, and they're already starting to make honeycomb and everything. And I didn't know what to do because I had to take this box in my car, and just had this nightmare that I did something wrong, and like I would leave a hole open and the entire car would be full of bees. So I put on the full white beekeeping suit and gloves and everything, and just drove home from Round Rock
with the head thing.
Yeah, I didn't need to.
You
apparently,
didn't have the net on. That would have.
Yeah,
I mean that would really be keeping Austin weird.
So I found a mentor, and this is a guy who in town. He's the guy that anybody calls if there's a bee infestation. Like if you got a mobile home or like a cabin or something, then bees sometimes, or a tree. Yeah. Bees sometimes just collect, and he's the guy that comes and takes care of it, cuts them out or takes them somewhere else.
We had a tree right across from our house that just the whole trunk of it was infested with bees. And one of the city workers was out mowing that part of the street and just got lit up by these bees. I mean, I guess if you piss them off enough.
Well, there's something that happens in the cycle of it's how they reproduce. So at a certain point, if the home that they have is filled up, half of all the worker bees and the queen bee will swarm. That's what it's called. And they'll just go somewhere else and they'll find a tree. There'll be thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of bees just clustered. And then they have to call in somebody like my buddy Brandon, who's mentoring me, and take care of them. But what happens is the old beehive has more capacity now. So the worker bees basically make a new queen. There's only one queen for the hive, and she does all the egg laying. All the drones are there just to have sex with the queen. And then so the old queen just goes and finds a new home, and then they just build the colony back up in 2 separate spots.
And you never see the queen.
So I inspect the bees every week. And what I do, since I'm not very good at it yet, is I put all the individual frames from inside the hive, I pull them out, and I take pictures of each side, and then I kind of look in and see, where are the eggs, where's the queen. So I've seen my queen, but in photograph. I haven't seen her in a natural state yet.
Right. And so, what are you gonna? Would you just use the honey, or what do you do with bee? I mean,
supposed to.
I mean, I love honey, but
I'll bring you over some honey. I'm supposed to make 30 pounds of honey this first year, and then if I decide to, split the hive and get more, then I'll make more honey. Not really. I mean, I'm just doing it because it's fun. It's like it's also the best pet in the world in a way, because I can go to Colorado and I don't have to leave any food out for the bees. They just like self-sustaining colony.
And you reckon, because for those of you listening, if anybody's listening, which is a damn good question, to the one person that's listening, Tim lives. I mean, we live elevation-wise kind of the same. You live on the other side of Shoal Creek, so you're sort of, which Shoal Creek runs through the middle of a great park in Austin called Peace Park. So you live right on the other side, and you see these. You reckon these things fly over our way or down to Peace Park to get. get some grub.
We have a lot of flowers in our yard, and my wife was thinking it'd be awesome that the honey that we make is from our own yard. But sometimes in the evenings I'll just crack open a beer and just sit in a lawn chair and just look at the hive and see what's happening. I can see they're all heading basically over towards your house. They go to Peace Park and beyond. I'm not sure, but that's where they're getting their nectar and pollen.
Huh. And if you had a bee in the house, you wouldn't step on it. You'd just get him out of the house.
No, I'd probably step on it.
Yeah, because you're kids. I mean, we have, Tim and I both have twin girls, which your girls are 6?
Almost 5.
Almost 5. So, and mine are 14. So I'm just, with it. But I can imagine I also have a 5-year-old girl. A bee comes in the house, and they think that they're being attacked. So
they like to hang out and watch the bees from a safe distance. Right. So, but normally, they're not out to attack you. I mean, they die when they sting you. It's only a purely defensive move. So they've gotten in the house by mistake.
Yeah.
But,
and so just on, and just, on the kid, twin girl thing, just good luck.
Yeah, I'm in the salad years right now, the good times.
You have a strong wife. So you'll be, these 14-year-old girls are, dude, it's tough to watch.
I do have sort of waking and actual nightmares about the future, about the teenage years. I was a pretty good kid, and I still gave my parents don't know half the stuff that I did when I was in high school.
Oh, back then you could hide it pretty good.
Yeah.
These days, these kids are, they're taking pictures of it and posting it.
I don't know. I hope for the best.
So we're here in Aspen, and I came down from the house to do this, and so I'm sitting there just to sort of think about our conversation, and I look out the front window, and a car pulls up, and these two looks like 16-year-old kids get out of the car. My girls are 14. These two 16-year-old boys get out of the car, and I'm thinking, okay, Ride the Rockies is here. Somebody's coming over to the house. I don't know what's going on, and I yelled down. I said, Grace, there's 2 boys. Oh, she says, oh, those boys are coming over here to hang out with us. I'm like, what? Like that's the first time dudes have shown up at the house.
That's what you do. What's the protocol?
Well, there's about 6 of their friends over there. So there's these lucky kids, these lucky boys. There's like 6 or 8 girls over there. They were watching Zootopia on the TV, on Apple TV, and these guys showed up. But I'm not worried about that yet, I guess.
Well, at least it's the house.
They're always at the house, which I like, and it's not 10 o'clock at night. That would be different. But anyways,
I had some advice from a guy, Jonathan Kuhn, who's like an investor, entrepreneur in Austin, and he said, make sure you build your house to be the most awesome house for your teenager, so that if they do get in that trouble, then they at least get in trouble at your house. Make it the home base.
The only thing I'll say to that is, and I love that. Like here at our place here in Aspen, it is like kid central, which means you have to buy like 10 times the amount of groceries, which means you have to clean up 10 times the amount of shit, which means all these things. But they're there. But the other freaky thing is they get older. They start doing what I guess we all did as teenagers, right? So you start drinking, you start experimenting, whatever. And then I just worry that if that's going on at your house and some kid were to leave, the liability, that part just really freaks me out.
Yeah.
I get it. You want them there, but then how are you going to police all these kids? I don't have that answer.
Nor do I, I'm afraid. But I got a little more time. You're in the heat of battle right now.
Oh, I know. 16-year-old boy too. All right, let's talk about Alamo, because I think me, like so many others, are just a huge fan. I don't even remember the first time I went to the Alamo Drafthouse, but it worked perfect for me because my life is so structured. I love going to the movies. But inevitably, the movies that I would find that I would go to would be like 7 p.m. Mm-hmm. And so you typically go to an AMC or a Regal or whatever, and your choices were popcorn and M&Ms and Sprite, whatever. And now all of a sudden you have this concept where you can go at 7 and have dinner and have a beer or have wine and have food, and it worked. And I don't know. I think it was brilliant, man. And not to mention that, but you had, I don't know, you know better than me, but dozens of imitators that have tried and failed.
Or tried and succeeded. You know, it's a strangely it's a growing sector of the cinema industry.
Right.
We've been at it a long time. We opened up the first one back in 1997. So hard to believe that I've been in business at this for 20 years now. It's
Tell me about the first, because you opened Alamo in 97, but
Yeah.
first you started in Bakersfield, which
Yeah.
I think I've been through Bakersfield, but I'm not real sure.
You know, I could show you an awesome weekend in Bakersfield. There's one really great bar. There's
Okay.
like one really great restaurant. I can get into a reasonable amount of fun trouble, but then I'd have to repeat it if you ever came back.
But you had a theater there.
Yeah, so I was right out of school. I studied engineering in college, and with really not much forethought. I can't even tell you why I did it.
University.
Yeah, I just did it.
But where'd you grow up? You didn't grow up in Texas.
I grew up. I grew up in Texas until I was 12, and then I moved to Ohio, a little tiny coal mining town in Ohio, and graduated high school.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's pros and cons.
And then you came back.
And then I came back for school. So I'm mostly a Texan at this point. It rounds to a Texan. But I got shipped out to Bakersfield, California right after college to take a job with Shell Oil. And I got there my first day on the job. And, I knew immediately there was like a couple of little things that happened that day where I was like, nope, this is not it. I'm not going to retire from this job. One of them, and I know you have an appreciation for fine art. I got an art degree at Rice. They encourage you to get 2 degrees, and so I got an art degree and an engineering degree. And I found myself more drawn to the art side the whole time. But when I arrived and I finished my HR paperwork and 401k and all that, and I said, okay, you need to go down to the basement and pick up your art. And so I was like, I have no idea what that even means. It's a really strange statement. So I went down, and you had 3 walls and 1 window in your office, and so you got to choose from their collection of oil paintings of like oil derricks or oil fields or basically a landscape. They had them kind of categorized into colors and what they were. And so then when you go into anybody's office, it's like a derrick and there's like a field, and it's like, can I swear in this?
You can say whatever the fuck you want to
that.
say.
So
Can you swear? I should have made that clear in the very beginning. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So I knew. That's a long-winded story, but so I worked there for 2 years, and I accumulated enough money, and I knew I was going to do something else. And then I'd always loved movies, but I hadn't thought about it as a career because I didn't want to make movies. But on my way to work, there was an abandoned movie theater, and one day there was a for lease sign on it, and then a week later,
one screen theater,
1940s giant, like 1,000-seat theater on the wrong side of town.
Right.
Like, because if I had any business acumen at all at that point, I would have understood. Okay, this is what you want to do. Why don't you find a viable location? Right. Instead, I just plowed ahead and signed a lease.
And this is in the early 90s.
Yeah, I think it was 94.
Yeah.
Ran it for 2 years, so 93, 94.
And Bakersfield had your traditional movie theaters. So
yeah, there was a mall theater.
Right.
I think there were 2 theaters that kind of bookended the town, one south, one north, both at the mall.
Okay, so
it was also the methamphetamine production capital of the States at the time before Mexico kind of took over that trade. So it was a really angry, violent town. You could also get really cheap contractors to do like carpet installation late at night.
Whoa. Okay, so that doesn't get. There was something happened. Somebody drove a car into the theater, and
yeah. So we ran it for 2 years. It was kind of a mess.
Brought in a pig at one point during Charlotte's Web.
Yeah, we sowed the seeds for a lot of the crazy stuff we would end up doing at the theater later on.
That's right.
And then we also became.
You're totally irreverent. That's what that's what I think has helped you.
The only money we really made was we were like the punk venue in Austin. So
Austin or Bakersfield?
Sorry, Bakersfield. At this first theater. So since it's such a big space, we built a stage, and that's the money really that we were able to accumulate and start the Drafthouse in Austin. But towards the end of the run, well, it kind of defined the end of the run. We brought in, it wasn't punk, but it was Montel Jordan, if you remember. One hit. I think it's like that's the way we do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so peak of his early fame, his only fame, terrible concert. But afterwards, there was a skirmish, and somebody was driving away and got shot and killed, and he wrecked his car into the box office, and so that's like the front page of.
Montel Jordan did?
No, Montel Jordan didn't die.
Okay, the other.
A fan of Montel Jordan, maybe who was dissatisfied with the concert at the Tejon Theater, but it was already tough because there was crime in the part of town where we were, and having a death at the concert and a drive-by shooting, just like no way. We were trying to show foreign language art films,
Right.
So
that would have been the most headwind or adversity or struggle that in the life of being a cinema owner, that was the toughest point.
Yeah, I think so. But it was.
You've had other issues, but
it was a galvanizing point. I mean, I remember that night really well, and there's part of me that's a little bit embarrassed about it because I was thinking about me. I wasn't thinking about the dead man on my porch, basically.
Right. Yeah, you catch yourself.
So I basically said, we've been talking about it. Screw it. We're leaving. We're starting. So we're abandoning this chapter and we're moving somewhere else. Right. Where this location's done. And
you just load up and head to Austin.
Yeah, a big old truck. Took 200 seats, a projector, a screen, a couple light fixtures, and that's about it.
But set out for Austin. You weren't going.
Mostly, yeah. We
Don't tell me you were going back to Houston.
No. Houston was never in the cards. No. Like we looked at a couple cities. Like I grew up near Pittsburgh, and those like 12 to 18 years, and I
love it.
I thought it's a really cool town. So we looked at
totally
like
underrated
4 or 5 towns that we had some relationship with,
right?
And but Austin at the time like had everything going for it. It was cheap. Believe it or not,
yep.
There wasn't anything like it. There needed to be more cinemas. There was a cool film school.
Yep.
Austin Film Society was really great. So all roads pointed to Austin.
Yeah, very creative town. Had rich tradition in all the arts. Mm-hmm. I want at some point I want to talk about Austin because I moved there in 1989. So you were a handful of years behind me. But so I want to get back to that and just talk about the evolution of that town and. Mm-hmm. What we think and obviously, there are people that got there in 69, they can speak to it much better than us, but I feel like it's been a unique and interesting development over the years. But all right, so you get there. First theater, was it on Anderson Lane or was it?
It was downtown. It's 4th and Colorado, right in the center of kind of the warehouse district.
Oh, wow. What used to be the warehouse district.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Well, we left. We had a 10-year lease and there was really not much around when we signed the lease, and then 10 years later, we didn't re-up because it went to market rate for our lease, right. And market rate was so expensive that it was actually cheaper and easier for me to move over to 6th Street and relocate that theater.
And now, how many in Austin?
We have 5 theaters in Austin.
5 in Austin,
and then 24 all over the country.
24 more.
24 total.
24 total.
Yeah.
On your way to.
What am I on the way to? I don't know.
You want 50? Do you want 100?
The benchmark right now is 50 and by 2018.
50 by 2018. And I was just curious too, because I was thinking about the business model, right? And so because I always read the newspaper and it talks about every week they list the top alcohol sales in Austin. Mm-hmm. And I'm always shocked at, Top Golf is number 1. And obviously, there's always some strip club that's in the top 3. And you get these, tremendous volume and revenue from alcohol. For you, what is the breakdown between somebody buying a ticket or ticket sales, I guess you call it, and food and beverage? Like in your total revenue picture?
Ticket sale revenue constitutes about a third of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 2/3 is food and beverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the big difference between us and like a regular movie theater. Regular movie theater, they're all publicly traded companies. That data's out there, so they have a $4 per head average per capita.
Right.
And so we're much higher than that. That's their food and beverage per capita.
Does anybody go to the Alamo Drafthouse and just watch a movie?
Sure. Yeah. I think not that many.
I was going to say
there's some regulars. There's some cinephiles.
I'll take a water.
Sure. Plenty of that. But normally, like if you're coming at 7, most people order some food. If you're coming at 10, most people are drinking a beer or having a glass of wine. But yeah, you don't have to.
Did I ever tell you about that time we brought in a bottle of wine?
No.
That was not a good thing.
Oh, no?
No. I mean, I got a really stern talking to. It was.
That's when you need to call me first.
I'm not that guy. It's like, oh, well, let me call Tim. I mean, I'm not going to fucking say that. I mean, but I don't know. I don't know how but Anna and I bring it up, and the lady, the waitress or whatever, and she was like, I don't ever want to see that again.
Well, I think so. Some restaurants can do a corkage fee, right? Where you just pay. It's like, oh, pay us $10, you can bring your wine.
Right.
But you can't do that with a full alcohol license.
Yeah.
So once you move up to serving spirits, at least in Texas, then they don't allow people to bring in their own wine.
Right.
So that's probably why the manager was like just doing her job. But,
yeah. We got it. We got the beat down.
all right.
She was good. And I wasn't about to drop your name.
Yeah.
I think there's been, I mean, to me, dude, there's been a couple things that just make you, and I'm assuming you steer a lot of these decisions, but there's been a couple things where people, it's created your brand. Mm-hmm. It's created this image of this almost, I don't want to say outlaw, but this outlaw theater chain that's completely irreverent. And I mean, I think one was putting out the voicemail from the girl who got asked to leave because you guys have a strong no texting policy.
Right.
I mean, what if you're like a heart surgeon or something, or a brain surgeon, and you got to look at your phone? There's some exceptions.
Well, there's not really any exceptions.
Okay.
So, what you do if you're a heart surgeon and you're on call, then if you get a vibrating text in your pocket, then you should go into the hallway and take it just in case it's a call.
Yeah. So, but
there's ways around it.
Yeah.
You just got to be. It really boils down to just being polite to other people.
Right.
Inside the theater, being aware that there are other people that you would be disturbing by doing that. So.
Yeah. I mean, so I think it was the voicemail, which I want to play, and then the decision to show the interview,
right?
Which was, not that. I mean, when was the voicemail put out? That was years ago.
It's got to be 5 years ago at this point.
So for the two people, I think we now have two people listening. So for the two people that are listening, I'm going to play this voicemail, but just know, okay, there's two of you, and according to this YouTube page here, 4.39 million people have watched or listened to this voicemail. And so this is, I guess I'll just set it up a little bit. This girl was texting in the theater. You guys asked her to leave. She gets in the car and calls just the main line and leaves this voicemail.
Treating your customers like pieces of shit, because that's how I felt when I went to the Alamo Drafthouse. Okay? You know what? I didn't know that I was supposed to text in your little crappy ass theater. It was too fucking dark in that place for me to find my seat, alright? I was using my phone as a flashlight to get to my fucking seat. So excuse me for using my phone in USA, the United States of America, where you are free to text in a theater. I was not aware that I could text in your theater, alright? I texted in all the other theaters in Austin, and no one ever gave a fuck about what I was doing with my fucking phone, alright? And it was on silent. It wasn't on loud. It wasn't bothering anybody. You guys obviously were being assholes to me, and I'm sure that's what you do. To rip people off, you take my money, and then you throw me out. I will never be coming back to your Alamo Drafthouse or whatever. I'd rather go to a regular theater where people are actually polite. And, I'm going to tell everyone about how shitty you are. And I'm pretty sure you guys are being assholes on purpose. So thanks for making me feel like a customer. Thanks for taking my money, asshole.
I mean,
she's all worked up.
She was seriously worked up. Does she know that 4 million people have listened to it on YouTube?
I don't think she was initially, because we were wondering if she was going to come forward.
You play it before you show a movie.
A lot of times, yeah. We got a lot of these in rotation, but this is the heavy hitter. So we were halfway expecting her to materialize when it first gained traction, because it was all over the place. It was was on The View. It was on Anderson Cooper. You know, we're getting interviews all over the place to talk about it. And but then for whatever reason, about 7 months ago, it perked back up on Reddit as if it had never existed. So somebody just reposted it, and there's a huge new conversation about it. And during that, the woman that left the voice message chimed in on a response. She said it was her. And so I checked out her YouTube profile because she's done some YouTube videos, and that voice is unrecognizable. It is completely recognizable.
Undeniable.
Undeniable. It's definitely her. But then, yeah, I was going to go have coffee with her, just chat about it.
But thank her.
Yeah, but she may or may not have an assault criminal record, so I wasn't really ready to go do that. So I was told maybe not a good idea. So we're not totally.
And no more. I mean, you would have think, these, people are, I mean, they lawyer up and so, next thing you know, you got a call from a local, ambulance chaser.
Well, the funny thing is, it's very clear cut in the law that if somebody leaves a voicemail on your answering machine, that is your property. You don't have the right to sell it. You don't have the right to monetize it, but you can use it for any of your business purposes. Right. So,
which you did.
Which I did. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, that was just, I mean, I think because I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day and telling him that we were going to do this podcast, and he lives here.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know what Alamo Drafthouse is. And I was like, you've never heard the voicemail? And so he's like, what are you talking about? So I sent it to him yesterday, and he writes me back. He's like, that's so fucking epic. And that's just, and then the interview. I mean, here you have a movie which I must confess I never saw, that clearly people were up in arms about, and obviously the threats were legit and real, and you up and say we're going to show the movie.
Yeah,
I mean, and that was it. Nobody else showed it after you guys.
Well, it was a funny situation. So the weeks leading up to
here
Christmas.
To make a movie, what would it cost Sony to make that movie?
That was not a small movie.
Right.
I would say
big
probably
stars.
Probably a budget of $50 million.
So they were willing
advertising budget of another $50 million.
So flush 100.
Yeah. So it started trickling. So there was a threat that any movie theater that showed the movie would be subject to 9/11 style terrorist attacks. And so
from the North Koreans, we didn't.
I don't think so. I mean, I've always had this personal belief that this is not the North Koreans, that this is a teenager, or this is somebody, in kind of the dark web circles who just finds this fun to destroy Sony and cause them a lot of heartache. Right. I don't think it was.
Hence the hack and the whole.
I've read a bunch of articles about it, and I think the people that I believe don't believe that it was the North Koreans. Huh. That said, it's a real threat. But
so you guys say you're going to show it?
Well, we watch everybody else say no. So Regal, AMC, Cinemark, Cineplex, which constitutes 95% of the screens in North America, within 24 hours, they all say, pulling it, which pissed me off, right? Because that's not how you respond to the threat.
Was this before or after Aurora? Was it
after?
It was after. So I think people, and not that long after.
Sure.
It was still fresh enough that people, combining those two things. So you have what happened in Aurora, and then, these threats, people are going, okay, they're tapping out. But you guys.
Well, then Sony says, we're going to take the movie out of release because there's no theater that's going to play it. Okay. And so both of these things piss me off. So the fact that all of the exhibitors in America just take that path, whereas I don't think it's the right way to stand up to those sort of threats. And then for Sony to say there's no theaters that will play it made myself and a lot of other independent theaters rally forth and say, no, actually, you're mistaken. There are lots of theaters that now think it's even more important to play it. So this was 2 days before Christmas when it was supposed to come out, and we put together a petition, and we got 400 independent theaters to say, we will play it. Let us play it. And Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen got the petition. They took it to Sony and kind of demanded that they honor it. Mm-hmm. So within 24 hours, we had to do all this crazy booking to get it done. It ended up about 300 theaters played it on Christmas Day. and everybody that was coming out, like there's people that don't want to see a dopey Seth Rogen comedy, like a, what equates to a stoner boner comedy, right? But they're coming out because they feel it's sort of a patriotic duty to do it.
Yeah.
So
any threats? I mean, and when you announced you were gonna show it, I mean, all the stuff that was allegedly happening in other places.
I mean, we didn't get any threats, but I mean, we knew.
I mean, clearly
it's a calculated risk too. We knew we were putting ourselves into a much smaller microscope at that point with several others by being willing to speak about it.
Extra security.
We did have extra security. Yeah. We did.
I think that's smart.
Some work with APD, Austin Police Department, to get us set up. And everybody, all the Alamo Drafthouse locations everywhere played it, and they went through the same exercise.
And so all these other 400 other independent theaters also played it. Same Christmas Day. Mm-hmm. Was it a good movie?
I like it, but I like that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I like my spectrum for movies is super wide. Like,
and Seth Rogen and these guys, these stars, they must have been. I would think they would have been super appreciative of that.
They, with like 12 hours to go, they recorded a nice personal message to the independent theaters of America, and we got it turned into the file is called a DCP. It's what you play on screen in cinemas, and all the theaters were able to play that beforehand. So it was cool. They wrote a nice letter to all the theater owners. They definitely appreciated it. They didn't make the movie to be just buried. They spent 2 years of their life, working on this thing.
And it was there. I mean, it was there. They wrote it, or they
wrote super... it. I don't know if they directed it, but starred in it for sure.
What's your favorite movie of all time?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy!
I never saw that one.
That's my boy, Adam Sandler. No, it's a question.
Top three. I don't know. I mean,
So
I'm not a huge movie buff. I mean, chances are you're going to say it, and I'm going to be like, oh fuck, what's that?
I think about. I'll sort of answer it. I sort of put them into categories.
I should have done that for a long time. Just sort of answered.
Yeah.
What was wrong with that? Lance, I'm just going to sort of answer this.
I'll choose this question to answer.
1,000 press corps here. I mean, I'll just give you a sort of answer. Okay, sorry. Sort of answer.
So see if this is an elegant enough dodge from the original question. So a modern era movie that I think is one of the most rewatchable movies that I'll always sit down and watch if it comes on is The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
I think there's in the last 10 years, a movie that I think is going to stand as a modern classic is Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 silent films of all things, believe it or not, that
now you're
stick with me.
Way far away from me.
Well, I see. Coming into this business, I had seen a lot of movies, but I almost discounted the entire silent era. But then I watched City Lights, Charlie Chaplin. I watched The General by Buster Keaton, and those movies are both so incredibly modern and influential and really funny, genuinely funny, that they stick with me from a historic perspective. That what they were doing in the 1920s has driven a lot of the language of what comedy is today still.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
So I didn't answer your question, but I gave something that's
you did.
Plausible.
That's you gave a top handful. That's fair enough. You sort of answered it.
Apparently, Rick Linklater likes to answer it with a different movie every time. And so he's on record of saying his favorite movie is this Dean Martin movie called Some Came Running with Shirley MacLaine. He's like, yeah, it's a good movie. Sure, it's my favorite movie.
Yeah, I love Linklater.
Yeah, it's great.
He's a great guy. Like the dude is just so normal. Like here he works in this field and in this culture that just can be they can be dicks, and he's just such a normal guy.
Yeah. He cares and
lives in Austin, lives in Bastrop.
Yeah, fostered this great scene. So
I mean, just every time I talk to him, I'm like, wow. I mean, that's like the most normal person I'm around.
Do you know about his potential brush with pro sports?
All I know is that he's a major baseball fan.
He was a major baseball player. He was like a prodigy college player that had high hopes for potentially getting into the majors, but had one of those knee shredding incidents where he's like, done, can't play anymore.
Well, they fixed those knees now.
Yeah, well, this was a long time
ago. Right, I got it.
Yeah, so he tapped out and then kind of got in with the filmmaking crew at UT. So in Austin.
Yeah. I mean, when you go out, I hope his place out in Bastrop survived that fire from a couple years ago, but he had the full, like Field of Dreams set up.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, just up, I don't know if you ever, Costner has a place like just up the pass. You'll ride when you start the stage tomorrow. So Tim's riding from Aspen over to Copper, I think, tomorrow. So you got to go over Independence Pass, down through Leadville, and then another pass, and then you get there. But as you just start the climb up Independence Pass, if you look down to your right, you'll see you may forget about this, but you'll see a few structures, houses, big lakes, and that's Costner's. He's got 100+ acres right there on the valley floor, and he has a baseball field that's, I mean, I don't know much about baseball, but this fucking thing, like, you can eat off it. It is, and this is the whole Field of Dreams thing. That's super, and the property, I don't know. I mean, I think if he were to list that, it would probably be one of the most valuable pieces of property in America. I mean, it's just absolutely stunning.
Years ago, we had this thing we used to do at the Alamo. We still do it from time to time, called Famous Movies, Famous Places. So we'd take a summer vacation. It was my job to find a sponsor to basically have a paid summer vacation where we'd go show just that, famous movies, famous locations. So he came out to a screening of The Field of Dreams at the Field of Dreams, which they still maintain. And it ended up being this real strange pilgrimage. There's a lot of people that's their favorite movie of all time. Right. And it was a pretty magic night for those people.
That's what we talked about, doing something similar with Breaking Away.
Yeah, and we still need to do that at some point.
Christian Parks, our mutual friend and who helps you and has helped me a bunch over the years. I think he ixnayed it. I'm blaming Parks.
Yeah, let's go ahead and blame Parks. It's not like we're recording this on a podcast that he can potentially
now that we're
deny.
up to 3 people listening, so maybe to the Christian, 3 people now are blaming you too. But no, so to the 3 listening, we were gonna take the mobile theater, which you guys have, and we were gonna take it to Bloomington, Indiana, where they do the Little Five, and we were gonna screen Breaking Away the days before. During the week of the Little 500, which is one of the, like, I don't think you've seen it in person, have you?
Not in person, no, just through
when
the
you
movie.
watch it, it's one of America's coolest sporting events. Like, it's just the energy in these kids, and these kids aren't cyclists, but they get into it. Their fraternity or their organization gets into it. They get trained up, and it's on this ghetto cinder track, and I mean, it's just like the movie. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. So. But that seems a little bit like what we talked about. We should, and we'll go find the quarry. I found that quarry. I sent you a screen
somehow on Google Earth. You did
I found it,
scouring,
and we'll go get in it. Although it's in April, the Little 5, so that water's going to be cold. But,
I'll still brave it.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of got to. Yeah, that's a good idea. Here's a question. So we're here in Aspen, and we have, and it's probably an independent theater. They may have a couple more in Colorado. But are you aware of our local theater, the name of the theater?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so, and it's been here forever. The name of the theater is ISIS.
Yeah. There's a lot of companies that have had to change their name from the ISIS.
Okay, right. So they talked to the owner the other day in the local paper and said, do you plan on, I mean, anytime ISIS does anything in the world, I mean, I'm sure tomorrow they're going to get the call after today.
Yeah.
They probably call this guy and say, "Are you going to change the name?" And he's always said, "No, we're not changing the name."
I wouldn't change the name either.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not that ISIS can only be defined by an awful, potentially half-baked terrorist organization.
Yeah.
That it does mean something else, and it's especially if you're a historic theater that's been there forever and. Damn it, you were here first. So I would never back down on that either. Wow. He's on the right path.
See, I guess I'm a wimp because I would probably cave to that. I'd probably change it.
There was a credit card processing technology, kind of like like next generation, like an Apple Pay type of thing that was rolling out about 5 years ago, and they used Austin as a test case. And right in the middle of the test case, the first kind of waves of ISIS started hitting, and that was the name of their platform was ISIS. And they did change that immediately. Yeah.
Well, I don't think, and he would know better than me, certainly, or anybody. I don't think anybody said, I'm not going to I mean, first of all, there's the only place to watch a movie in Aspen, Colorado, unless you want to drive down Valley. But I'm sure he feels like it's not affected his business. But it's this big, bright sign. I mean, every time you see it, I'm sure people come here that have never been to Aspen, and look up and go, "What the fuck is that?" I mean, it's right next to the fire station. Like it's just right in the heart of town. So
it'd be ironic if it turns out it's a cover organization. And that's the U.S. headquarters of ISIS, but that's probably not true.
Yeah, but you never know what's going on with these guys. You never know. America's gotten interesting. We talked a little on the ride today about, and I thought about it after we talked, because we talked about, now for the 4 people listening, there was this huge political fight in Austin over Uber and Lyft, or any ride sharing company, about do they consent to fingerprinting their drivers and anyways, it became a big fight. Uber and Lyft both invested millions and millions of dollars to try to win the election. And there was a ballot that had one thing on it, which was worded so technically that I can't believe anybody voted for anything. But just hearing you, I mean, you can talk about your view of that, but just hearing you talk about it, I thought, and this was after the ride, I thought, I wonder if, maybe Tim wants to be the mayor of Austin at some point.
No, thanks.
Right? Yeah.
Who knows in my twilight years what I'd want to do. But I certainly care about the city. It's my home, and I have no intention of leaving. And I do find myself strangely getting involved on very select political issues. We hosted the announcement for Ride Austin, which is one of the companies that's coming in.
So this is the Lemont's deal that we talked about.
So basically, I'm a huge rideshare advocate. I love it.
You voted against Prop 1.
I voted against Prop 1.
Interesting.
And I strangely, the month leading up to it, spent a lot of time just talking to drivers. And the way that Uber and Lyft handled the situation in Austin, they could have easily won the election if they would have just mobilized their drivers. But I can tell you that about, from my own poll, about half of them either weren't going to vote or would vote against it as well, because they want Uber to be a better company. And so what might come out of this, I don't know. But Uber's a cash machine, and I respect it madly. But I also, what's coming in its way, because Uber and Lyft left the town, what they left was an infrastructure. They left thousands of drivers and tens of thousands of riders. Yeah, at least. And so that cost them a lot of money to build up that market, and they just abandoned it. So it's ripe for somebody to come in and pick it up. And Joe Lamont, formerly of Trilogy, he's one of the people that's vying for it. Very smart guy. Very smart. But he wants to run a rideshare company as a nonprofit. So basically taking the margin down to a slim percentage of necessary overhead. But the driving principle is that the drivers will always have a living wage.
Right.
And that's not necessarily, there's been some experimentation of reducing drivers' wages to find that, like, how will they still have enough of a pool but generate more profit? I've got no beef with that necessarily, but I am a strong believer in ensuring that those who work have a living wage.
And this is to my point. I mean, you're clearly passionate about it, but I can see what you're saying, and there's the both sides of it. I mean, we were talking too. I mean, if you're going out to dinner with some friends and pre-gaming, it's just the smart thing to do. You think they'll be back?
I don't think they're coming back.
You don't ever.
I don't.
Not until driverless cars. They're coming back.
Yeah, they'll come back for driverless cars. Yeah. Like that. I mean, this is all just a preamble to the real business, which is there's no need for drivers. It becomes like a robotic army.
Right.
Let's think of that what you will. But
they're all investing heavily.
Yeah, that's obviously down the road, and I think it's sooner rather than later. So that's the point they would probably come back.
Yeah, only to be overtaken by drones. How about that? No more traffic.
Yeah, I'd like to live in Austin with no more traffic.
Austin traffic. See, now you're sounding like the mayor. Yeah. Well, it was an interesting thing. I think Uber and Lyft, they fought hard and spent a lot of money because they knew that was precedent setting for every other city around the world, quite frankly. And by the way, I should be fully transparent. I'm an investor in Uber. I have been for a long time. I use the service, obviously not in Austin anymore. But I look at it too. I'm like, why wouldn't you just get your driver's finger? Who cares? Just fingerprint or do whatever the issue. Just consent to that.
Right. I mean, it does potentially set a precedent, and it breaks down that barrier between independent contractor and employee. Theoretically, that's the argument.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I was against what the standing city council of Austin did. I think it's bullshit in terms of the requirement for additional security. I think that younger drivers that they're making a conscious decision, and they're okay with the level of security that Uber has. And so I don't think the regulations that were imposed upon Uber were right.
Right.
And then I don't think that the way that they handled it was right either.
But you're a guy who's now found a solution through a Facebook group that,
that's my favorite. Yeah.
Right. So there's no background checks there. I mean, you could be getting.
I was getting my hair
some
cut.
Dude from the wrong side of Bakersfield driving you around.
Well, it was the day after Uber left, and I was getting my hair cut, and I was bemoaning to the guy cutting my hair about the situation. It's like, oh, I'm going to invite you right now to Arcade City. And it's nothing more than a Facebook group.
Right.
But yeah, you just post in where you want to go, and then you pay the driver directly, whatever you feel is appropriate. Yeah. And so it filled in the gap when we needed it.
Right. So you see both sides. I get it that you see both sides, but then there are people that, there's, like Anna, my much better half. I mean, it was a big deal to her.
Yeah.
She, a woman in a car, that's stuff that they think about. And
there's a new one that's starting up. By the time guys get back to Austin, it'll be up and running, called Chariot, which is only women drivers for only women passengers.
Interesting.
Which I think is really great.
Crazy shit can still happen there.
What I love is like they left this vacuum in a market that was primed for it, and then like name. America gets back to business and just like we're gonna figure something out. We're not done.
All app based, all through an app.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, I want to finish by because you need to go. You got to get rested up, and I got to go give this talk at the Ride the Rockies. Which, by the way, it could be a little juicy at times. Opening it up to the 500, floor of 500 cyclists in Colorado.
Yeah. It's a bold play, my friend.
Oh, yeah. But I love that.
Yeah.
I love sitting there going, I mean, at this point in my life, fuck, I've heard it all.
Yeah.
So it's not like anybody's going to say anything. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to sort of answer this. But I am going to steal that line. That I might even use it tonight. But no, in wrapping, I want to just Austin. You got there in '94. I got there in '89. I moved in when I graduated high school in Plano, and I mean I couldn't get out of there quick enough.
Mm-hmm.
You probably know what that's like. And I loaded up a U-Haul, drove my shit down, and moved into this. Oddly enough, it's about 300 yards from where we live now. So I rented this little flat right on this sliver of Shoal Creek between MLK and Enfield. So
okay, I know exactly where that is. Yeah.
And it's kind of a dead. You can get out or you can get in, but you can't pull out that way because it runs you into oncoming traffic. So I lived in this little flat behind a house. And in 1989, Austin was, I mean, Whole Foods. You remember the original Whole Foods?
Sure.
It was
the one that always flooded.
Yeah, where the Goodwill store is now that still floods. I mean, that was the one and only Whole Foods in the whole fucking world. And I would walk down there. They had the Martin Brothers Cafe. So I'd walk down after a hard ride and have lunch and get some groceries, and I'd walk home. But anyways, if I wanted to drive, if I got out on Lamar and you got to those red lights, you have the series of, between sort of 15th and the river, a bunch of lights. I mean, light went green, you went. Light went red. I mean, there was never, my point being, there was nobody there. It felt totally empty. And here we are now. You have a city of 2 million people. You have massive growth, massive traffic problems. We're all probably going, where's the fucking drawbridge? Mm-hmm. But I don't think we can stop that.
We cannot.
And do you miss, like, because Austin's, I think it's super cool now. I mean, it was super cool then. It's super cool now. Like, would you go back?
Like if I had a time machine to go back to old Austin?
Yeah, or if you could not change it, I mean, or not have it grow and not have it be busy and be hip and be whatever.
I still love it. I mean, sure, I miss certain things that aren't around anymore. I don't like that we have such heavy traffic, but that just means for me personally, I really contract like where I go.
And we live in the core.
Yeah.
Like we literally live downtown.
Yeah, I can get downtown anytime, but if I have to go visit somebody up north, I think real hard about it.
Yeah.
I never do it during the times where it's heavy
No,
traffic.
you gotta think like a Los Angelian or whatever.
I think the most vulnerable part right now is live music, like the Red River corridor. Like the city really needs to do the right thing, and we use this phrase like Austin. It's the live music capital of the world.
Right.
It's the self-proclaimed live music capital of the world. And I feel like there has to be some city-run initiatives to acknowledge that and maybe earn the right to actually use that phrase and think long-term about it in terms of subsidized housing, ensuring that the iconic music venues don't go away.
Well, don't think for a second they won't mow those down. I mean they'll go Liberty Lunch all over those motherfuckers.
Yeah. Then, but there are some other ones that are popping up outside the city.
Yeah.
So
you're talking about Mohawk and all that stuff along, but that's all going to change with the Waller Creek.
I know, but it shouldn't. Waller Creek would be a much better development if we could still keep it to be a live music corridor.
Yeah. But you're saying try to integrate or keep some of that around as a
recognize that it's an asset for our town, and then recognize that every time you tear down a Liberty Lunch, you're fucking up the town.
Yeah.
And maybe learn from the mistakes that something can be historically significant and not be 100 years old.
Yeah.
So.
La Zona Rosa, Liberty Lunch. I mean, just, when I moved there, I mean, just seeing just killer bands in those places that there were just sheds, right? And I love live music. So and at the time I was young and single and could do stupid shit, and I still do stupid shit. But I mean, you just go out to and you look back on that. We don't have even farther out. I mean, remember the old backyard? I mean, how amazing that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, they get a lot of mileage out of that tagline, and I mean, maybe it's being overtaken by Keep Austin Weird, which
is another tagline I have some issues with.
Yeah, of course.
Like co-opted to mean different things. It should really be an acknowledgement of what did happen in Austin in the 1960s and the 1970s. Right. And your weirdos are going to change, but we should still try to foster that community that respects that's an important part of the heart of our city.
Right.
But on the flip side, I think that sort of hippie aesthetic attitude that was pervasive in Austin in the 1970s was responsible for the traffic problems we have now.
For sure.
You have to build infrastructure projects 20, 30 years in advance. And I think they were just blinders on about the growth pattern.
I think back then they had the choice to I mean, because we all know how difficult it is. You can't catch up to that. I mean, look at what with Mopac, they're adding a lane, adding a toll lane. I mean, by the time they're done with it, you're going to get on that thing, and people are going to go, "Wait a minute, I'm still in traffic. I thought this was supposed to be." And going back 20, 30 years ago, addressing east-west corridors versus just north-south, we got none of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I play golf a lot. I love it. And sometimes I play out at the UT Golf Club, and we'll finish, inevitably, I always finish at 5. So I'm coming back into town from Steiner Ranch. And, that's a straight shot. There's nobody. But I get on 2222 at 620, and I start coming down, and the cars are lined up. All the way down the Tumbleweed Hill. Pretty soon they're going to be all the way back to 360. These poor people are waiting for a fucking light at 2222 and 620. I mean, I'd go nuts.
Yeah, I workshop my way that I don't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
But like we said, I mean, we're blessed to live right in the kind of the center of town, and I mean, the ability to walk places and just be free like that is we're lucky. Yeah. Okay. Well, we got to run. I got to go do this thing. You got to get ready for the Independence Pass.
Yeah.
Starting to storm.
Tomorrow's going to be a brutal day.
Did you land in Aspen?
No, I landed in Denver.
Did you drive over the pass, or you went around?
I think we went around. I don't remember going over the pass.
You would remember that.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a long pass.
Okay.
So you'll have 3 feet of snow at the top on the sides, fortunately. But no, it'll be tomorrow. You'll wake up. It'll be perfectly clear. You no problem. And Tim, by the way, for the 5 people that are listening, Tim League struggles a little on the uphills, but the mofo can fly downhill. I remember that last year going, when we came down, whatever that long climb is we did last year, I thought, okay, this will be interesting. And I turn around, and not only are you right there, you're on your fucking tri-bars. I'm like, I wouldn't get on my tri-bars. By the way, going 45 miles an hour out on those things, I don't know.
Not a good idea.
Well, there's no brakes out there.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yes, I realize.
Yeah.
I got like cat-like reflexes. No, just I'll pull it
well,
back.
hey, I'm impressed. Okay, well, Tim, thanks for coming on. And
Thank you very much.
And good luck the rest of the way. And we'll see you. I guess we'll see you after the summer.
Great.
I'm not going back when it's 100 degrees.
I try to work my way around that too. I take a lot of very important business trips that are
I've got
not in the heat of summer.
I have to go on a trip. Sorry. It's 105. Anyways. All right.
Well,
Thanks,
good luck
man.
with the podcast.
Thank you.